be able to. Hey guys, and welcome to the Garage Athlete Show. We are on episode 74. Those have flown by. And we're joined today by Daniel Frazier and Stephen Renadli. I don't want to butcher your name, mate. That's it. So we've known Steve for quite a while. He's been a big part of the Home Gym UK group for pretty much since it came about, I think. Steve's very, very active in there, happy to kind of like answer questions, etc. for the community. So we thought we would finally get him on, have a chat through kind of like Primal Strength, their growth, like the story behind them. I think we find that people quite enjoy to learn about the people behind these companies. Like a lot of these companies they're just a brand, but when you can actually get to know the people that are like behind it and the story and how they came about, I think it builds them a little bit. So Steve, why don't you introduce yourselves? I know a lot of guys in the group will already know like who you are, but introduce yourself, kind of like your background and how you came about being the owner of Primal Strength.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me on, guys. I started my fitness journey in late 90s, which makes me sound very old. I was quite a young guy. So 2000, and I won the BMBF, like Junior Mr. Britain, the natural bodybuilding. I was a rugby player before that. Left school quite young. College that I went to for sports science didn't have a rugby team. So I just got into lifting weights. So yeah, started back competing in 2000, joined a fitness company in sort of 2002, really focusing on sports nutrition and a little bit of cardio and strength kit. Worked for them for a number of years. 2007, I then joined Johnson Health Tech, which most people in the group will have trained in a pure gym or gym group. So Johnson Health Tech are the company behind Matrix Fitness. So worked for those guys for 2 or 3 years. I was doing the retail side, so all the own label for John Lewis and different brands like that. 2010, I'd sort of spent 3 years on the road with JHT. My wife was in Glasgow. We weren't really seeing each other a huge amount. So I got asked to go back to the fitness company I'd originally started with. So I joined them as a director 2010. Built up that business pretty aggressively over the sort of 2010 to 2015 sort of time, over 5 years. And the two main owners sold the business at the end of 2015. They sold it to a big German retailer. And that also included the sports nutrition brand that I had with the owners. So yeah, we all exited. And 2016, I started a gym with a couple of my friends. And the other big thing I did was launch Primal Strength. So we launched with about 100, 120 SKUs, something like that. I designed them all from bedroom in my house at a third-party logistics company down in Hull, where we imported the containers and they did the dispatches. And I was out in the road selling the kit, designing the gyms, installing the gyms. So that sort of took me to the launch of Primal Strength. And then over the last 6 years, it's sort of grown into being probably the biggest sort of strength company that does actual gyms in the UK. Last year I think we did just over 12.5 million, and our financial year this year finishes in April and would be just over 15. So it's really grown some arms and legs. And
my first question to you is going to be like, how involved in the design process like were you at the start? And it sounds like it was just you. Yeah. So literally it's one of those stories where, as you said, you started out with a computer in your bedroom and you were doing everything, and from there 6 years later you've now got, so how many people are in your team now?
We've got just over 30.
Okay.
We're still relatively lean. We all put a shift in every day, and but that our staff are everywhere. So one of my main designers is based in China, and he does all the CAD work. So I've got a very skewed working week in terms of sort of 5, 6 a.m. starts to work with him for a few hours before his day finishes. But yeah, no, right at the start, obviously with the previous business, I'd been in Taiwan a lot, in China a lot, around most of the factories. The previous company was, it was turning over 20 million. So it had a very good buying experience. I'd also at JHT been involved in a lot of the product development for retailers. So, I'd been involved in that side of the business for a long time before I took the plunge to do it myself. And it wasn't like I just, decided, right, I'm going to take a small loan from the bank and launch Primal. We'd been relatively successful in the previous company. So we had a good, I had a good foundation. What I didn't have at the start, which I wish I knew then what I know now in terms of building a team and trusting a team to grow your business. But the first person I brought in was actually my sister. So she'd been in sales for a fitness company for about a decade, something like that.
That's handy.
Yeah. And
cool.
she'd been there, done that, ran a really strong telesales team, knew how to motivate people, was just, a good egg. But she was earning a lot of money. So I was like, right, how do I get my sister into the business when it's a startup and, there's no guarantees, and she'd been in a job for a decade, but I managed to get her involved. And a business partner who's no longer involved at the start, who knew quite a lot about marketing and branding here, a big sports nutrition company. So, it wasn't purely just myself and my sister sat in a bedroom. It was, we had a decent strategy behind it. And we had some good connections. But yeah, to go back to the kit point, I basically looked at the market and felt the American brands were doing some good stuff. The UK brands weren't, and Europe is generally a little bit behind the curve on the American scene or the UK scene. So, I went to some of the manufacturers I knew, and then just started to tweak the racks and improve them. Again, whether it's things like our power bags, we eventually ended up making them out of Kevlar, so they were bomb-proof and they would just never break. So everything's just been development. We really don't take anything off the shelf. But yeah, first product we launched successfully was our half rack, which has now become sort of our halo product. We're just about to launch version 4 at FIBO. So, there's been a lot of
Is that the German one?
Yeah, big German show.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I just know it's been closed the last couple of years, so it's good to hear.
Yeah, it's been closed the last couple of years, and we've taken a big plunge. We've got a 200 square meter stand at the front of Hall 7.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're launching 8 new plate loaded products. We're launching 5 new selectorized products, and we're launching 2 new racks. But for me, as everybody copies and catches up with your product, or maybe doesn't catch up, but has a more cost efficient version of your product because it's maybe not quite as well spec'd. We're 12 months before that, we're already planning for how do we improve and how do we make the product better. I mean, the new version, the cable system we've put on it is pretty special. It's probably the first rack where you could truly do cable crossovers on the top cables in what is a standard size rack. So I'm working pretty hard on that. And when I say we, Gavin's been doing a lot of time on it. Ryan in China's been spending a lot of time on it. We've had the samples for months on end. It's just a case of getting them into full production. And
so logistics at the moment must be a bit of a nightmare.
It's the biggest challenge in our industry just now for anybody that doesn't manufacture in the UK. And to be honest, guys, even the guys that do manufacture in the UK generally bring their components in from Asia. So, everyone's feeling that. And some have handled it really, really well, not taking any pre-orders, only selling when it's in stock. And then I think everybody realized we're going to have to do a little bit of pre-selling, or, too many things are going to be marked out of stock for too long. And not everybody's buying a rack that wants it delivered in the following week. So, we've managed it as best as we can. I think we've done pretty well. We've managed to protect the business in terms of our reviews and looking after customers. But yeah, delays have been a challenge. And it's been one of the tough parts, not being able for me to get to factories and work with the factories on the product design. Everything's been remote. So
have you been out since? Oh no, I guess restrictions are coming back in China a little bit more again, aren't they?
Yes, China's back on a 2-week lockdown. They went back into lockdown in a lot of the major cities on Monday. So that's been pretty tough. But no, the last time I was out was November 2019. And I got super ill when I came back. And I genuinely don't know if I had COVID when I came back. But came back, was really ill, had booked again for the March. And obviously everyone was in lockdown by I think early March. So I never got to go back out. Yeah. And then this year at FIBO will be the first year the show goes ahead without any of the Asian manufacturers having stands there. Some of the European counterparts do, but most of the big factories aren't at FIBO this year.
No, it gives you a bigger opportunity there, I suppose.
Yeah, look, for me, FIBO is really about taking Primal more into the international scene. We've got a couple of really, really strong international distributors, but it's something that we've mainly just focused on the UK scene.
Yeah.
And we do very well in Ireland as well. I should add that in, but this is the first year where we're going out with a real, meetings are lined up with a lot of the big international distributors. So exciting times.
So what do you think sets Primal apart? So as you said, like the Americans have kind of got their own thing going on over there, and they seem to almost like set the standard. And then the UK scene, as you said, 10 years ago or something, just wasn't quite up to par. And then Europe's just a little bit behind us. So like, what do you do that you think like sets you apart and makes Primal one of those like go-to brands that people aspire to kind of, you're not going to just like be able to pick up a budget setup from Primal. Like the stuff that comes from you guys is very, very kind of good quality. And it's what, if you make an investment into a home gym, that's kind of like the top end one, like where you want to get to. So what do you think kind of sets you guys apart from the rest of the industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you said there. So, fitness and strength equipment now has become aspirational. And, we always set out to create an aspirational strength brand. We wanted to be on point with not only the equipment, but the marketing side. We are one of the only companies, and I genuinely mean this, and it's maybe not as appropriate in terms of, our group, our home gym group, right? Because that's purely focused on home gyms. But, we're one of the only companies in the UK that you can come to that will design your facility. Everything from flooring through mirrors, through zoning, what's the latest trends. We'll then work with you on, how are you targeting your target demographic? How are you speaking to them? What's the messaging? So that full turnkey solution, and a true full turnkey solution, you're not coming to Primal and buying, your CrossFit rig and then having to buy hammer strength plate loaded. You can truly come to Primal and get absolutely everything for your strength and your functional space. And even now we're starting to go a little bit more into the HIIT cardio. Just again, the market's moved slightly and we've seen the opportunity there. But yeah, I mean, what sets us apart for me is not only the full turnkey, but the innovation. We're always innovating and improving. I remember, sitting with Gavin and he's talking about hip thrust bar. And I'm like, Gav, everybody just rolls they just roll the bar up their legs. And he's like, yeah, but you've got to remember where that product comes from. If you've got a rugby player, 240 kilos in a bar, him twisting to get into position, it's just not the safest thing to do. So Gav developed the hip thrust bar. We launched that. It goes absolutely crazy. Pretty much 95% of the people that bought it were females training their glutes, so that performance solution was there. We work with it, design it and make it for the performance space, but actually it comes into real life training. And, strength training has become a hell of a lot more inclusive over the last couple of years. There's so many more deconditioned people coming into strength because they understand now that, weight training and even just body weight training will improve their life. So yeah, looking at the performance side, especially from the States, I'm out there quite a bit. I look at a lot of the, and I don't just mean Rogue. I mean, when you look deep into some of the American brands and some of the innovation that's going on there, you look at the collegiate level in terms of the universities and their setups and some of the stuff that, Sorinex are doing, some of the plate loaded manufacturers over there. They're really, it's an amazing country for development of strength products. And then we look at that and say, okay, does it fit in the UK market? Do we need to alter it for the sizing of the UK people? We are a slightly smaller nation, and so are a lot of the, the French and Italians, mainland Europeans. So we look at that and how the biomechanics work. And we just try not to copy. So we definitely take some inspiration, but we don't just want to say, okay, X company make this and we're just going to copy it. Whereas I think, especially with a lot of the sort of Alibaba pop-up brands over the last 12, 18 months, somebody's literally gone on Alibaba and said, right, I'm going to put my name on those hex dumbbells, that bench, that product, and try and launch a strength brand. That's just never been Primal. It's always been product first, and then, and then working out the price. And as we've grown now, we've been able to be a lot more aggressively priced on the commodity stuff. Which is great because it means we bring ourselves back in line with maybe some of the premium home brands, but we are able to offer the commercial quality. But it was always just that innovation piece, and then just always improving, right? Like, I think if you think about it from an athlete point of view, the perfection's pretty much impossible, right? So you compete and you do natural bodybuilding, right? You'll be able to take your physique naturally to a level. But it's not, there's always going to be that boundary. So ultimately it's about those small 1 pound, half kilo improvements, or working on a weak body part. We're doing the exact same, just on equipment, so something that's maybe gone into the market and people have fed back and said, look, I actually don't love that product. We've ripped it apart and, we work on it and try and improve it. And I think that's one of the big differences between a company like Primal and some of the other, more vanilla or more traditional strength brands out there.
Could you give us an example of where that's happened? Because that's really interesting, especially from a consumer point of view.
Yeah, I mean, again, not to just go on about our racks, but if you look at, I won't mention any companies' names, but if you look at what was on the market 6-7 years ago in the UK for racks, it was flat J-hooks. They weren't J-hooks, they were just flat, metal. There wasn't a lot of spacing. There wasn't a lot of storage integration. Their pull-up options were pretty much an angled bar, and that was it. The quality of the rack in terms of, if somebody did fail a big lift, generally wasn't there. And people just viewed it as, well, it's just a power rack. And actually, the market, especially the commercial market, 10 years ago, it was very much, well, we'll put in 80% cardio, put a rack in a corner and a set of dumbbells. We don't want tons of big guys in our gyms. Whereas if you look at even the sort of more low cost chains now, they're putting in 20, 30 benches. They're putting in 10 power racks. So for me to continue to grow Primal Strength in the right way, it's about innovating and making sure when we say our top rack is best in class, that it truly is. And that takes constant feedback. That takes constant growing of the brand and working with our designers. Again, things like, barbells. We all, probably everybody in our industry, looked at the ceramic coating and thought it's a really cool way to make a barbell and make it look really nice. Ultimately, ceramic coating scratches and can get damaged. So then we looked and said, okay, what's the next way to improve that product? And we went with a harder Teflon coating. And touch wood, the testing we've had now, so it's been in the market 6-7 months, it appears to be a lot harder wearing than the ceramic coating. So again, it's just that little bit of looking at the product and saying, okay, this is a really good idea. It gives people personalized barbells, or they can tie their barbells into the color of their gyms. And how many different color home gyms do we see in the group? You know, there's some really fantastic spaces there is. You know, whether it's mirror fit orange, you know, whether somebody's done a black and red, whether somebody's got a primal green rack, you know, there's a lot of different colors out there. But again, on that product, we looked at it, you know, we've sold thousands and thousands of those bars. And whilst there's never an issue with the actual barbell, the bearings, everything like that's always perfect, the wear on the coating, we've seen it a lot more in commercial gyms coming out of COVID, where the bar has been black chrome or black ionized. The alcohol sprays in the gym, you know, eventually wear that away. And sometimes they patina and it looks quite nice. Other times you get surface rust. So if that's not maintained, you end up with a product that doesn't look as good. So, you know, early June 2020, we went out and started working really hard on our stainless bars, because we knew commercial gyms, that's the only way, you know, the bars are going to last the test of time in terms of the alcohol sprays. So again, it's just, you know, it's just always looking at what's the next challenge, what's the next opportunity, and working through it that way.
Yeah, such a you just would have, I've been training in gyms now for probably as long as but either of you guys have, but it was never would have crossed my mind that you'd have to build a barbell to deal with sanitizing spray. Like, you know, I can't think of a single time a bar was sprayed when I was a kid, pre-COVID. So now, yeah, it's a massive reflection on what's happened.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what you say about the changes that have happened and like, because I've trained in probably 3 different gyms now since COVID, just because I didn't like the first 2. And it's even simple things like the gyms are now having to say to people, like, don't spray the alcohol spray like directly onto the machines, because it's causing the machines weren't coated to deal with that. So it's causing the machines to rust, because people are spraying the alcohol sprays, getting onto the metal, and that metal's not treated, whereas the metal for the handles and stuff tends to be stainless steel to deal with it. So yeah, there's lots of changes that have happened in and around gyms, just because, well, the whole world's changed over this last like 2 to 3 years sort of thing. And as you said, it's then down to the manufacturers to go, well, how do we deal with this problem? And like you said, Steve, like, it's going to be going out, getting feedback and making adjustments.
Yeah, and honestly, like, so even if you think about, you take any machine that's in a commercial gym, and whether it's got a gloss finish on it or a matte finish, where that spray gets sprayed eventually runs down and settles in a point. Generally, it's a weld point in the bottom of the machine. You know, so eventually, constant alcohol sprays, and, you know, I went into a gym last week and they had Dettol sprays. I'm like, guys, you can't use Dettol sprays on kit. Like, that's not designed for, you know, imagine pouring like alcohol or bleach sprays on kit constantly. So yeah, everybody's had that challenge. I was in one of the larger chains, and they'd had a site for 7 years without. It wasn't a Primal site. We were just in speaking to the GM, and you know, big brand, really, and a really great brand as well. And I was saying, so how's the kit been affected? And they were like, oh, come, let me show you this. And they were showing me bits where, like, even the chroming had actually finally come off, you know, and that kit for 7 years was perfect. And now just in 18 months, 24 months, it's came to the end of its shelf life. So yeah, there's been a few challenges like that. Again, I think generally most of the brands have managed to survive it and get through it. We still have a challenge with, you know, and again, it's probably quite an appropriate point for the group, you know, the garages that are cold and not heated. I remember at my previous company on the cardio side, whereas it would rot a motor on a treadmill, you know, because you've got that moisture in the air, you've got the sweat going into the motor of the treadmill. Even with the treadmill guard, you know, you're sweating in that running belt, it's taking the water into the motor. You know, and just trying to get people to, you know, they're investing sometimes thousands and thousands or tens of thousands even of pounds into their kit, and they put it in a double garage that's got, you know, a centimeter gap at the front of the garage, and cold air is blowing in, and, you know, then they're training solidly for an hour and a half, and they're sweating all over the kit. So yeah, what I try and do in the group is be as balanced as possible, but try and give a bit of advice as well, rather than, you know, I'm not there to sell kit, you know, like we of course, I would love people to buy the kit, but like we've got our marketing schedules well in advance, and we've got our route to market. And I do try and genuinely get involved and help people. And yeah, it's been an interesting time with the cleaning stuff, and so many people starting garage gyms without insulating their garage. So
I think the most amount of money I've spent on equipment is my garage door, and it's insane, like the difference. I think I managed 12 degrees even in where it's like -1 outside. It's just like, it's completely blown me away, the difference. If you've got the budget, I highly recommend getting that room insulated. I appreciate it's a big cost, but God, the difference is insane. But I mean, like, would you say, I know a lot of your company is still, for example, a local gym down me just been brand new, been fully kitted out with all your stuff, and it looks fantastic. But I mean, like, how much has the percentage of what was your business of like home gym, like bear in mind we're a home gym podcast, has that grown quite a lot over the last couple of years, or is it steadied out? Or like, how much of that of your business is for home gym users?
It's really interesting. So we massively changed. So we were 80% commercial. At the height of the pandemic, we were about 60-40. So it's 60 commercial, 40% home. We were very, very lucky that, we do, well, last year we did 500-600 gyms. We're on track to do a lot more than that this year. But we were very lucky during the pandemic that a lot of the independent gyms got support from their members. So they still had income coming in. And what a lot of the independent gyms did was they reinvested in the gym. So we managed as a fitness business, as a strength business, to maintain a lot of the commercial activity. But even then, it switched from 80-20 to about 60-40. We're now seeing post-pandemic the commercial side going absolutely crazy. The appetite's back for the for the commercial gyms. The other spike we're seeing, which is quite nice, is I think a lot of guys and girls bought anything they could during lockdown for their home gym, and the ones that really train now have looked and gone, okay, I'm going to invest in this properly. So we're now getting a lot of people that maybe bought, I wouldn't name a brand, but let's say they bought an entry level brand. They bought a bench, some dumbbells, barbells, and maybe a home, squat stands or something like that. They spent 500 quid, but they've really used it and really loved it. We've got those people who are now coming back to us and going, look, during lockdown I had this setup, can you design my garage for me? And they're spending some serious money. But they know that that's an investment now for their gym for life at home. So we're back fully commercial, but it's not. I would say the split's probably now 70-30. So it's not gone back to 80-20. It's probably maintained the consumer side. We've also launched a few more consumer-based products, which is something that I think will continue to grow as long as we can keep making them at a good enough quality and still hit a fair price point. We'll continue to grow on the consumer side. The real challenge with that is the cost of containers at the moment. Before, when a container was 1,250 quid and you would get 200 racks in it, now that container is $11,000. You're still only getting 200 racks in it, so your price point then becomes more expensive for the consumer side. You can take a little bit more of a hit on the commercial because generally there's a little bit more margin in the racks. But it was very good for the home market, and the home market's still strong, so we're good.
Oh, that's interesting, man. Right, moving on.
So what do you think your two biggest challenges you've had to overcome as a business owner? So as you said, you've worked in other businesses before. I think you said you were a director of one, and then is this the first time you've gone all in on your own back?
Yeah. Okay. Probably the biggest challenge I had as we scaled was bringing in staff and delegating out some of the big roles. And I still have a little bit of, even now with 30 staff and some of the top people in the industry, as part of our team. And we've got 5 of our team of equity in our business now. So we've really, really built the best into the business. Just delegating out and having that realization that if I don't delegate out, if we don't build a team, if we don't have a head of sales or performance marketing or any of these people into our business, we'll never grow and fulfill where Primal could be. So that was probably the toughest bit. We had a year 2 to 3 was probably our slowest growth year. And that was the year where I had to change and bring in some key people to grow the business. And then I think I touched on it earlier on, but the toughest part for me is not being able to go to Asia recently. The difference in being in the factory, manufacturing on the floor, testing, giving feedback instantaneously, getting that changed, and then before the end of the week, before you leave the factory, you've got your new product finished, and that can go into production. So that trip I went on 2019, I took Gavin out. Him and I spent, I think, about 10 days across 4 or 5 different factories. We were given instant feedback. Gav's given it from a coaching point of view. I'm giving it from a sort of biomechanics, a feel, and just really that touch and play part. To not have been able to do that, to have to do everything remotely. And I won't launch a product if I've not seen it. So as I say, these products we're launching at FIBO, they should have launched last year, but we just weren't happy with the final products that come in. So that's really slowed down our product development. And we're one of the only companies that doesn't use sourcing houses. So we buy directly from the factory. So, if you imagine the sourcing houses going to the factory, they're seeing, let's say, a Primal innovation, and they're going back to the customer and saying, "Oh, have you seen this? Do you want that?" And that company might go, "Yeah, I'll take 100 of them." When you're actually in the factory doing the development bit, not being able to do that for the last couple of years has been so hard. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like, even this year is going to be the year that we get back over there. And we've actually now started to do a little bit more UK manufacturing just for those reasons. So yeah, that's probably the 2 challenges, but the delegating one was my hardest one.
I think that's for anybody who does own a business and wants to grow it above a certain size. I think for a lot of people, like, especially if you're a type A personality, like, you always know that in your mind, you can do it best because it's your baby and it's your business. But as you said, learning to let go, put the right people in the right places and hand over some of that responsibility, like, I know that's something that I really, really struggle with, just because whenever I've had, maybe I'm just not very good at telling people how I want it done. But yeah, I've heard from a lot of business owners that learning to delegate and learning to recruit is probably the hardest kind of thing to do. So I think you sponsor some athletes at the moment, don't you? So, well, what athletes do you sponsor?
Yeah, so I'm working with a few different ones. So Celtic approached us, and I know they're not athletes, but as a football club, they approached us about 4 seasons ago to get involved with their S&C, and we've fitted out 3 different sites for them now. But we started working like Zach George. So Zach's by far and away, certainly in my opinion, but in results as well, the best CrossFitter in the UK. And I wanted to learn more about the sport. I wanted to learn more about the kit, the rig design. It was, when we launched, CrossFit wasn't my focus, and I felt like we make these amazing racks, but we hadn't fully got into rigs. So working with Zach, for example, and designing the rig for his facility, we've now put 2 rigs in there, but it's opened my eyes up to a lot of a lot of that CrossFit world. Sarah Holden, another amazing athlete. Sarah's a female online PT, and she's just absolutely killing it. She's just she's getting amazing results for her clients. She also full hybrid training, and just gives us great feedback. So yeah, we've worked with Sarah, Zach, bit of kit into Graham Hicks recently, strongman. Him and his good lady are building a gym there. So working with those guys on some bars and dumbbells and stuff like that. Custom leg press coming for them. Yeah, it's one of those ones. We've also worked with a couple of like coaches and influencers as well. So Adam Collard, Adam owns Sculpt Gym in Newcastle. He's probably most famous for Love Island, but again, really good coach, really good facility. We're working with him to design his new space. So yeah, a mixed bag. A lot of bodybuilding gyms. It's athletes is a tough one. Coming from a sports nutrition background, where I never wanted to have the athlete promote the kit like the way some of the athletes promote sports nutrition. And I think you get what I mean, which is if an athlete's paid enough, they'll promote the brand. So I've seen a lot of top MMA guys, because we used to work with a lot of MMA guys in sports nutrition, use our product and then go out and promote one of the big American brands because they were getting paid six figures. So when I started the business, and I never really wanted to have athletes per se, like Phil Lerney, for example, who's a very good friend of mine, and he's known as the PT coach on Instagram. Phil, works with a ton of coaches. I didn't get Phil involved as an athlete. I got Phil involved for his, his understanding of kit and where we can improve the product and work in the industry. So whilst we kitted out Phil's gym free of charge because all of the help and support he's given us, I wouldn't class him as an athlete, but I would class him as somebody that's of influence that we would work with, but because they've got a skill set to bring to us to improve our brand. So yeah, it'll be an interesting time. We're working with a new company on our branding and our marketing. We're just about to do a little bit of a brand relaunch, to be honest. Just new logos and some new strategy stuff. And one of the sort of bits of feedback was we should definitely look at a lot more athletes. But yeah, it's got to be the right ones. There's athletes just now out there that are sponsored by other brands that are using our kit. So, you've got to be very, very careful. So yeah, but yeah, Zach and Sarah, as I say, Celtic, Adam, guys and girls like that have been amazing for us.
Perfect. So what do you think, you've already kind of covered this briefly anyway, but what do you think the future holds for Primal? I know you guys, as you said, you want to grow, go into more of an international market. So where do you see the business in the next 5 years? What's the dream outcome for you?
Yeah, for me, big focus on kit. So, making sure every product is as good as our top products. Definitely that international expansion. We've got some cracking distributors buying FOB just now, but we really want to put that Primal stamp in a lot of countries across the globe. Just number one for strength. It's a big statement, but you've got to have some ambitions. We sold half the business last year to really good, strong private equity company that had a lot of experience in growing sports nutrition businesses. And the reason I did that was, I wanted the help and support and the network to take our brand to the next level. And it's the same as we mentioned earlier on about that delegating out and working with, your team and building your team of staff. We went and met with a number of the private equity companies, the investors, to look at it and say, together, how can we build this into, a global strength brand? So yeah, that's the challenge for the next 5 years.
Well, there's an old saying, isn't there? It's better to own half a watermelon than a whole grape.
Yes, and also, it's the perfect point, because there's only so far I could personally take this, and I have to be honest with myself in that. We brought in Dan Clayton as a non-exec director. Now, to give you an idea, Dan was the guy that launched Techno Gym in Asia. He was vice president of Johnson Health Tech and worked with a lot of the chains to set up their models. For Diaco, I think he was a commercial president there or something along those lines, but he tied in Diaco. So that's Spirit, Soul, all the sort of cardio brands coming out of Taiwan, with Philips to look at some of the tech going back into fitness. So we've brought Dan on, and just having a guy like that at the end of a phone to give you some advice. We brought another non-exec and from the marketing side, and the amount I'm learning, honestly, it's huge. So if we can apply that to the brand and continue to improve the kit and the products we offer, I think we should be some good longevity and a good growth into the market.
Awesome. Is there anything else? Anything you wanted to cover, Dan?
I think that's it. I think it's been a great insight into the company, and I think it sounds like very exciting stuff for the future.
Yeah. So, if the guys want to find you on social media, either Primal or the website, etc., where's the best place they can go, Steve?
Yeah. So for new products and some of the installs we do and everything like that, Primal Strength Official on Instagram. That's where we kind of live, 60,000 followers, loads of engagement there. Our website's primalstrength.com. I have a private social media, but
you don't need to say that if you don't want to.
Yeah,
I know you get bombarded with enough messages as it is from the group.
I get a lot of messages from the group. Look, it's a great group. I love being involved in it. There's a ton of great people in there. There's a ton of great suppliers in there. It's probably the only group that there's not a ton of disagreements. Of course, people have got brands they like more than others, and it's always an interesting conversation. But generally, it's a very strong group, and everybody seems to be supporting each other. We just, from my point, I just hope it continues to grow now that the world has opened back up. But yeah, if somebody wants to reach Primal, they're the channels to go through. To be honest, I dip in and out of our socials most days. So if there's a question that one of my team can't answer, I'll genuinely answer it.
No worries. Well, thank you for all your time today, Steve. I know you're a busy guy. So yeah, thanks for jumping on and talking to us today. And I'm sure we will probably speak to you in the group. If not, and we shall be back next week, I believe, if Dan's around. But I think we're just going to be, I'm not sure if we've got a guest next week. I think we're just going to be talking rubbish like we always do. But yes, thanks for all your time, Steve. It's been great to have you on. And yeah, I'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
No worries, dude. Bye for
now.
now.
Bye. Cool. Right. See you there, buddy. I gotta go.
Bye.
Take care, man. I think it was all right, man.